So the AtariBox. Now, of course, we've been talking about the AtariBox for a while now, right? I mean, ever since they dropped that really weird looking teaser, and we couldn't figure out what it was exactly. And then they showed us composite images of it, renderings. We tried to flip it over and figure out what could be in there from the ports on the back. Still nothing major that we could figure out exactly, right? Well, now it looks like early this morning, they sent out an email to everyone who has signed up with their program where you could be alerted for updates and everything. And they included some very interesting information in there. Information that caught me off guard a little bit. Now, part of it, I kind of figured, if you go back and watch the video where I was trying to figure out what could be in there, I kind of figured out that it probably would be an AMD processor, and they have now confirmed that, which is cool. But they've also talked about pricing, which was a little out there to a lot of people. And they also talked about the operating system that would be running on it. So let's take a look at what they told us today and see if we can figure out anything about what kind of processor they're using overall from AMD. And I guess if it actually has a place in the market. Some of the big information that was really presented to us in this email that was sent out were a few things. The biggest one being, yes, it is using an AMD chipset. So it's going to be using a similar chipset to, say, the PS4, possibly the Xbox One, except there's one problem. It looks like they are going for more of a low-powered solution here, considering the system itself is using a much smaller power supply based on what we see on the back of it, and the size, of course, of this system. It seems like they're going to be going with more of the low-powered end, something like how, for example, the Smock Z that seems to be, well, kind of mythological right now, was using Merlin, which was a low-powered system on a chip similar to like the Tegra. Now, this probably isn't surprising to many after seeing how large the system is. It's pretty small. It's not a big system at all. But still, to see this system come out, have a low-powered chip in it, and then get tagged with the price that it was tagged with, which is $250 to $300, that seems to get a little out there in terms of pricing. I'm not really sure where in the market this would sit. There was another very interesting piece of information that came out that might kind of tie everything together for more of a niche consumer. It's going to be running on Linux, which means this could be an entirely open box compared to what we have with the other systems that are very closed. So what this really means is, depending on how locked out the system is, which if it's running a Linux distro, more than likely people who are a little more technologically advanced can pretty easily run their own version of Linux, or at least unlock the one that's on there, which is very interesting because then this system could turn into something that is actually a pretty cool little box that runs Steam games, for example, because Linux, of course, has access to Steam. And then it can also, of course, I know what you're thinking, yes, it can probably run emulators and ROMs probably pretty well if it's using an AMD low-powered chip. Definitely around, like, say, what a Tegra would run. Now, we also don't know which low-power chip they're going to be packing here, because it could go as low as, say, a Tegra 4, or it could go even as high as, seriously, a Tegra X2 here. And that's kind of going to be very interesting to see, because this system could be more powerful than the Switch. Granted, it does not have the mobile capabilities that the Switch has, obviously. It's not going to be leaving the TV, it's tethered to it, so that's a little bit of a disadvantage, but it won't be as powerful as the Xbox One and the PS4. I just don't see how that will be possible at all. It's going to fall between the two more than likely, and that again presents an issue as to who is this for. Now, they also gave us a little more information about how they are going to fund this. Yes, it is going to be crowdfunded. Looks like they are shooting for Indiegogo, which means, well, they're probably going to be basically putting these up for $250 to $300. They said that's based on storage, apparently. And then we're just going to essentially pre-order off of Indiegogo, and I guess when they hit a certain goal, they will start manufacturing these. What this tells me is it's probably going to use an existing chip that AMD already has, considering there probably is no major contract written up other than, yes, we've already made, say, these Bristol Ridge chips. Whenever you're ready and you get everything together, let's design them and send them out. When I do look at this, they could be using like a low power chip, say like the AMD Merlin chip that was going to go in that Smock Z. Completely possible, but they could also be using like a laptop chip, like something from the Bristol Ridge line. It's very possible they could be doing something like that, but there's just so much we don't know still about this system. All we know is it's going to have an AMD badge essentially on the box when you get it. Anything else, we're not sure. We assume DDR4 memory will be in there because either one of those would pull from that. And I don't think it's going to be a super old processor because according to them, it's going to be playing modern games. Which ones, we don't know. Probably not the super demanding ones, but I mean, what the Switch can run now, I would look at the AtariBox and say, okay, that should be able to run the same type of games the Switch can. Now, of course, that also depends on a lot of stuff. Do they bake in any APIs, anything like that? Because if not, the Switch will still have the advantage on the software front, especially since it looks like they're just going to load what more than likely will be a mildly custom version of Linux. Now, you're not going to see something obviously like Mario or anything on here, but any Atari classics, you probably will. They even say there will be built-in Atari games. So where do we go from here? You know, it's hard to say. At this point, all we can do is wait for their crowdfunding to start, and then from there we can see what's packaged in. We don't even know what the controller looks like at this point. It could be a callback to the Jaguar controller even, but really we need to see more information about this, and I'm going to keep an eye on this entire situation like I've told you, and see if we can come up with their crowdfunding. And when that shows up, we'll go all the way down up and down their Indiegogo page and see what we can figure out, what we can ascertain, because at that point, they need to outline everything that's inside that box. They really can't try to sell us on a crowdfunding campaign without any information on processor or specs or anything. But I'm very curious what your guys' opinion is on this. Is this system going to even make it in the marketplace? I've had conversations with people who say, I don't even know if this thing's ever going to come out, and you know what? It might not. Remember, it has to reach a crowdfunding goal for them to actually buy the chips from AMD and then put it all together. There's a chance that this just does not even make its crowdfunding goal, although I think it will, only because the internet you're able to reach the niche market that they need on the internet without too much issue. There's tons of people at Atari age, for example, that probably will buy into this. There's tons of people who love their Raspberry Pis and love Linux and see this as a really cool way to buy and then launch their own version, their own distro Linux, and then do everything they want to it. So I think that niche audience is there, but it's definitely not something that's going to be mainstream. Don't expect to see it in stores next to the PS4, the Xbox One, or the Switch. Thanks guys for watching. I'll see you next time.